welcome. You are listening to Ex Post Watcho. I'm Ilana. I'm here with my friend Jason. Jason, how are you doing today?
Hello, I'm good.
Great. So every week we revisit a movie from our past, something that one or both of us have some opinions about, and see if it holds up. This week we are talking about Gattaca, the 1997 science fiction film written and directed by Andrew Niccol, New Zealand writer and director. Not much else on his resume that's too noticeable, but he did write The Truman Show, which I didn't know. Jason, I know you've seen this movie. What is your memory of this movie? Or what do you recall from your viewings?
I saw it a really long time ago, probably like, I don't know, 2002 or something like that. I remember thinking it was a pretty cool science fiction movie. I like science fiction. I like Ethan Hawke. Oh, Uma Thurman is in this. I like her. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I think it'll be cool.
Yeah, this was, I think we've watched a couple of sci-fi movies, and they're if you listen to this podcast, you know that they're maybe not my bag, although Aliens really did convert me. This is maybe my favorite science fiction movie. It's really highly stylized. It's got very human and slightly political, I shouldn't say slightly political, pretty political themes. I just think it's a really interesting story. Love the cast. Like you said, Ethan Hawke, Uma Thurman, Jude Law, Tony Shalhoub is in this. A lot of great people. I will say, I was thinking about this movie the other day, and I hated Uma Thurman's performance in this. And I think this is the first thing I saw her in, and I was like, she's a terrible actress. And then I saw her in other things, and I was like, oh, she's actually great. I know, but she's quite wooden in this movie. And I have been questioning whether that is because of her abilities, or if that is an intentional choice based on the world that we are supposed to be living in, as opposed to maybe Jude Law's character and Ethan Hawke's character and where they are in terms of their place on this hierarchy, or their place in terms of what class they belong to and how they're viewed. Because Ethan Hawke's brother, I don't know the actor's name, but the character is very wooden as well. And so I have a feeling that that is what it is a result of, rather than talent, so to speak. So I'm really going to be looking out for that in this viewing. It's been a couple years since I've seen it. I used to watch it like probably twice a year. It's one of my favorite movies. But it has been a couple of years. So I'm really looking forward to getting into this one again and seeing if it holds up for me. I really hope it does, because I loved this movie growing up. So we shall see. I'll be very disappointed if this does not hold up.
Uma Thurman, you're on notice.
Do not disappoint. Look, Jude Law, I guess in 7th grade when this came out. I had never had a crush on a celebrity who wasn't sold to me before, like a Backstreet Boy. Sure. This is the first time I saw a grown human man that wasn't like marketed to me as a preteen. And I was like, excuse me, what is this?
I'm feeling strange sensations throughout my body.
Yeah. So if Uma disappoints me again, Jude will be there for me. I know he'll be there for me. So
what about Ethan Hawke? He do anything for you?
No, because he cheated on Uma Thurman with their nanny. So he's in my burn book.
Oh, in real life?
Yes.
Oh, no. I didn't know they were
married.
They
were married, and he cheated, and it was a big public scandal. And so he is, you know what? I'm going to put him I'm going to put him page number 1 in front of Tom Everett Scott.
Oh.
But you know what? As I'm saying this, Jude Law also cheated on Sienna Miller with the nanny. So 2 stinky cheaters in this movie.
When you say the nanny, do you mean Fran Drescher? Because, in that case, I kind of get it. God, she is a queen. She would never sink so low as to betray another woman that way. She's a class act. My muse, my fashion muse, my hair muse.
Yeah. Well, okay. I'm already kind of sad about this. So let's go watch these two stinky cheaters.
Go watch these jerks.
Yeah. In this absolutely stunning film. And then we'll come back and see if my rage has subsided. See you then. All right, so we're back. We both just watched Gattaca. Well, actually, full disclosure, I watched it 2 weeks ago. So this may be a bit rusty on my end. But Jason, how was your rewatching of Gattaca?
Yeah, so I actually watched it 2 weeks ago as well, and then shortly before recording, I watched it again. Maybe a little bit of fast forward involved there, but that actually was a really good exercise because not that I didn't understand anything the first time I saw it, but I kind of like picked up on a little bit more and some things. Well, anyway, I'll get into that later. Yeah, it's a pretty good movie. It's well made, sci-fi. It really has the feel of sci-fi stories I remember reading as a kid, these like, collections from the Isaac Asimov era of sci-fi where it's all like written in the 50s and it kind of like feels like it's taking place in the 50s. This feels like an homage to that kind of science fiction story, aesthetically as well. I like the performances. I like Jude Law and Ethan Hawke. They have really good chemistry, and there's, some moments of humor in there. I guess I was a little bit disappointed with the premise and how far it goes with it. I guess like it has a very clear like sci-fi premise and perhaps message or viewpoint on eugenics, but I was kind of like a little bit disappointed just with how much it wasn't explored, like the world. Like the movie does feel like it takes place in a very narrow physical space, as well as like a very narrow view of the society. And I kind of like, I like my sci-fi to like, if you're going to give me a story about like class warfare, like I really want to understand like how the economy works, which it doesn't really bring, which is fine. It doesn't necessarily have to do that, but that's kind of where I felt I wanted something a little bit more. But yeah, overall, it's a good movie. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's super interesting that you say that. Maybe that's why I love this movie so much. This is by far my favorite sci-fi movie. And maybe that's what I haven't loved as much, like, for instance, such as like a Blade Runner, where I was like, can we just narrow down in on a little bit more of a human story here? Or, android story, whatever. I love this movie so much. This is going to be an hour of me gushing over this movie. Because I also really like the film's sort of vibe. It's kind of like a film noir-y sci-fi hybrid. And I really like that we're following a very specific story in a very specific point in time in a very specific place. And I think that for me, it's a little bit harder. And I feel like all those other things are kind of implied through the story. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I didn't really think about that until you just brought it up. So I think that's an interesting point. So yeah, the movie, so Gattaca, which I, knew wasn't really a word for anyone listening.
It's the French word for cake.
Yes, for all the non-French speakers. Even my French is horrible, and even I know that's wrong. A, T, C, and G are the first letters of DNA's 4 nitrogen bases, and they are used in the notation of genetic sequencing. So that's where Gattaca comes from, which is the name of the station, space station, I guess, where Ethan Hawke, Jerome Vincent works. And little tidbit, all the G, A, T, and C letters in the credits are all highlighted at the end of the movie, which was cool. I like that. So the movie opens up with 2 opposing quotes that sort of set us up for the the tone of the film, which is kind of this science versus faith, nature versus, man-made or controlled life. And I think one of the most beautiful opening credits in movie history, honestly, with all these little like flakes, which you don't really know at first what they are until you've seen the movie, and then you realize, oh, it's like human material.
Oh, hard disagree. I mean, I knew what it was. Like, I knew the general beats of the story, so it was kind of obvious. But like, yeah, you see a fingernail, and then you see some like kind of puby looking hairs. I think it's pretty obvious what that is.
I don't know. I disagree, but I don't know. Anyway, it's kind of gross, but it's kind of beautiful too. I love it.
It's well done. I wonder if they actually used those things and had a close zoom, or if they actually had to make, because like the hairs look, it reminds me of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and the weird like shrunk down stuff that's really big. It's got a similar kind of texture.
Did you freak out?
I had a panic attack.
I also love this has the same effect on me as Little Women. The music, when that starts up, it just takes me back to the first time I watched this. I think it's a beautiful score. Michael Nyman, I think. He's European. It's his first Hollywood score. He did The Pianist as well, and a bunch of other stuff, but mostly based in the UK and Europe. I just think it's everything. I think in this movie is so beautiful. Like the whole production design, every costume, set, makeup, hair, every little detail is stunning, I think, but including the score.
I agree. I think the only things that I maybe feel a little bit so-so on are there are a few story elements that are a bit and some of the performances, which we'll get into.
Yeah. Even this time I was like, wait, there are some things that don't actually make sense to me. There were a couple of them, which was sad, but all right. So we open on Jerome, Ethan Hawke. He's working at Gattaca, and he's leaving on a flight mission for a 1-year manned mission to Titan. His boss, this old creepy dickhead, is really impressed with his flawless flight plan. And Jerome's just employee of the year. It looks like he's cleaning his workstation and his keyboard very diligently.
Which seems highly suspicious to me. Like, this is a world where they're like in the habit of vacuuming up like things looking for DNA. And he's like, I'm just going to clean all my DNA out of here. It's just a thing I do.
Maybe it's normal because at one point, one of the detectives that comes in a little bit later is like, this place is spotless all the time. So maybe it's like maybe every workstation has cleaning utensils. Maybe
when they did that
like
blood
normal
test, they're like 90% obsessive compulsive disorder.
And he sprinkles. He did it with an office full of people. He sprinkles a little vial of like flakes, materials.
For a guy who just compulsively cleans his desk, it's covered in human filth.
Yeah, I mean, a little, okay. I'm going to forgive that, though. Jerome goes for his little checkup at the doctor, I guess. I don't know, to test for drugs and alcohol. And this doc is really into Jerome's D here. Yeah.
So, like, spoiler alert, he knows the whole time. He's like his buddy. He's like, he's inspired because he's got a kid, and he knows he's not going to space the way society works now. But yeah, that scene is really funny where he's like, hey, how's it hanging? I mean, I can tell. Great.
Yeah, it seems like such a weird detail when you first watch the movie and you're like, why? What's wrong with the doctor?
So I want to know, does he have like a fake wiener that he's using, or is he just like taping something to it? Like, what is Xander Berkeley looking at in that scene?
Wait, is Xander Berkeley the doctor's name?
Yeah.
Okay, because I saw that name in your notes and I was like, who the fuck? I've seen this movie 20 times. Who the fuck is Xander Berkeley?
He's that guy. He was in 24, which is
sorry. Xander Berkeley is the actor's name?
Yes.
Okay, that makes more sense. Yeah, he's great. I didn't watch 24. Yeah, I think he just has like a tube. I think I think that Jerome Vincent just has a great D.
He's just like staring at his dick like, ever told you about my son?
It's a little weird. I don't know. I just assume guys talk to each other like that. No?
Well, I don't know.
You're at the urinals.
You're not like, staring that closely being like, hey.
Good job.
You're using the wrong hand.
So obviously Jerome isn't actually Jerome, and we get his life story right after this. And And it's a lot of faith versus science stuff. Like it starts with his mother giving birth, him telling us she put her faith in God instead of science. He was conceived out of love, the good old fashioned way. Mom's holding a rosary when she delivers him.
Trivia fact, Maya Rudolph, one of the delivering nurses.
I know.
Which I went back and watched, and she's not the one who like looks at the thing and has lines of dialogue. She just like is in the background for 30 seconds, but she made it to the Wikipedia page.
Yeah.
So, okay, this is something that I don't understand. This is like the sci-fi nitpick part of this movie. Mm-hmm. Is the reason they had a natural birth just a choice of like, we just don't want to do it that way, we want to do it this way? Or is it some kind of cost thing? Because in trying to understand how this class society works, it doesn't make sense to me unless there's some kind of barrier to doing it this way, other than like your own kind of personal beliefs and stuff like that. And I think that's what, well, they don't really explain. So,
well, he does. His line is that she put her faith in God instead of science. Mm-hmm. And I think the rosary really also tells us like she is, I think that they want, even when they go and they have their designer baby with his brother Anton a couple years later, they were like, the doctors, figuring out, oh, what do you want him to have? And we can eliminate any chance of anything horrible and make him a perfect specimen. And they're like, we don't want to go that far. We just want to make sure he's going to be healthy. So I think that it is not necessary. I think that most people at this point seem to, although maybe you have to be able to afford it because people working in like janitorial jobs and things like that appear to be people who were like godchildren, is whatever they're called.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the ultimate question I have is like, class society reproduces itself because basically if you're poor, your odds of being not poor in the future are very low. Whereas if you're wealthy, you're more likely to have kids who can be wealthy and, exist in that strata of society. And this is a society where it seems to be clearly defined that like, if you're not, if you don't got the perfect genetics, then you work these jobs. And if you do, then you can do these things. So I just wonder, like, it was this, how would people ever choose to, I don't know, like go with faith rather than science in that kind of situation?
Yeah, I think I get the impression it's a little bit of both in this case. And Dad seems a little less. Dad, Elias Koteas, our guy.
Great head of hair.
Yeah. He seems a little, he loves Vincent, but then as soon as they have little Anton and their designer baby, Daddy loves Anton more. And Vincent is sort of, he's just rejected left and right. He's rejected from school because he's a liability and they don't have insurance to cover a godchild, which is a really interesting kind of glimpse into little baby Vincent's life.
Yeah, they kind of don't, they allude to it early on where he's like, I thought I was what my parents thought I was or something like that. Like they're very like, oh, careful, he gets a scrape and it's the end of the world. But that doesn't actually seem to like manifest later in the movie because like, I think one way that can go is a kid who is raised like that with very like, protective, over-concerned parents. Like you just end up like totally neurotic by the end. Maybe speaking a little bit from personal experience here.
Yeah. But I think also he's the eldest child, which is... The eldest child always just inherits all the family trauma.
Yeah, that's true. The second one, they're like, we're going to get this right.
Yeah. And so they kind of toss Vincent aside a little bit. Mom looks a little bit sorry for him. But it's clear that, and Anton, he's kind of a little bit of a dick. He's not very nice to his brother. And he knows that he is the superior being.
Yeah.
Is it him? Is it him that says the only way you'll see the inside of a space station is if you're cleaning it?
No, that was the dad.
The dad. Because, Jerome...
Which was kind of a mean
Vincent.
line.
Yeah, what a jerk. But Anton takes after Daddy. He's kind of rude to Vincent. And then they play chicken all the time in the water. And then one day Vincent saves him. And that was, quote, the moment that made everything else possible. So Vincent's like, fucking bye, jerks. Teen Vincent, by the way, very Jeff Buckley styles and just sort of by proxy is extra heartbreaking. it's kind of a sad moment when like Anton sees him leaving and they don't even say anything. He's just like, you get it.
He just like ghosts in the middle of the night.
Yeah, I mean, I would too, probably. By the way, little baby Vincent, not teen Vincent, Dennis the Menace.
I also discovered that fact while looking on Wikipedia.
I love it. Yeah, so Vincent pieces out and starts in the janitorial department of Gattaca. We get that cute little moment where he's like sitting at the desk, like pretending he's nodding to people around him. Ethan Hawke, yes, I'm mad that he cheated on Uma Thurman. How dare he? However, very sympathetic performance. I think he's really good in this movie and makes you really get on Vincent's side, like immediately.
Yeah, he's very charismatic. Although there's 2 moments in this movie where like Ethan Hawke has a face where he can look kind of menacing, even though I don't think he means to. Like the first scene, I think you see him, or one of the early scenes in Gattaca, the creepy murderous commander guy is like chatting with him, and Ethan Hawke says something about like, is the mission going to be canceled, sir? But he just like looks so like scary when he says it. And it's not really consistent with the actual character and the tone of the movie. Just something about that shot.
I wonder if he was doing that, whether his choice or was directed to do that, to sort of put the seed of like, maybe he did do it. Maybe he did kill the director later on.
I don't know. I don't think it was deliberate. I think it was just something about that delivery and maybe the angle of the camera and his face just made him look.
I don't know. I would argue it might have been a choice. We will never know. We'll never know. So anyway, he's telling us how shitty it is for Godchild. He wants to go to space. He hits up Tony Shalhoub, who's like a slick version of the guy who sells kids fake IDs. Yeah, he's going to sell him a new ID.
He's really good. He's only in this movie for like 3 minutes, but he's just a fun character. I like his delivery of everything.
Yeah, he doesn't give a shit. He's there to make money. And so then we meet Jerome, who's the man Vincent is to, quote, become, whose identity he's going to take over. This was like an awakening for me in my youth. Even now, I'm like, I still have very strong feelings for Jerome. Jude Law in a wheelchair, smoking a fucking cigarette in this moody lighting, looking cool as shit. And we hear that, he's a swimming star from overseas. Like he's English. He's not like from some non-English speaking place, like some place that seems much more foreign because they're speaking a different language, not the same language as us. But they really play on this thing of like, he's a foreigner. Anyway, I love the connection of he was a swimming star and the brothers and their game of chicken in the water and the swimming and the parallels between Jerome and Vincent through this whole movie and the brothers. I'm obsessed.
Yeah, that was one of those things reading your notes that I was like, oh, I didn't notice that. There's a lot of little details that I'm like, okay, that's clever. A lot of smart stuff in there.
Yeah, it's really subtle. I didn't notice some of it like until I watched it this time with a more critical eye. So then Tony Shalhoub is trying to turn Vincent into Jerome. He's like really trying to sell it. He's like, you look so much alike. And they actually don't really look that much alike.
But that
they
picture,
have that photo. Yeah. That picture of the ID photo, that has to be like a composite of both of their faces because it doesn't really look like either one of them.
I think you're right. I mean, the movie makes a point of saying that like, I guess because they have all this like DNA verification that nobody looks at photos anymore. Right. But that picture is definitely, I don't know. And also, is there only like one, you get one ID picture and it's like, that's you everywhere. This is the only picture we have.
Maybe. That's how they do it here in British Columbia. I have a healthcare card and a driver's license with the same photo on it. The cards look identical. So maybe. I look like a really scared Victorian baby in them as well. Interesting. Anyway, Jude Law gives us some moody bitch lines. Like he's like, oh, who lives up there in his...
Not me anymore.
Yeah. Well, I certainly don't. How tall are you? 4'6".
Yeah.
He's great. And he really kind of like is this example of this burden of perfection that this movie is highlighting. And, you know, he's like, well, with all I had going for me, I was still second best. He won silver, not gold, at what I'm assuming is the equivalent to the Olympics or something.
The Space 50s Olympics.
Yeah. And so, okay, so Jerome, who's Jude Law, then says, okay, well, call me Eugene because you're Jerome now. So Vincent becomes Jerome. Jerome becomes Eugene, which is his middle name, which is kind of a nice moment between them when he's like, you know, call me Eugene, you're Jerome now. Jesus.
Jude Law.
Jude Law, Eugene means well-born. And also sounds like eugenics. And that was another little thing. Everything's a choice. And I 1000% that is intentional. And I thought that was really a beautiful little touch.
Yeah, that was a detail I did not notice again until I read your notes. I was like, oh, clever.
I'll just watch this like 55 more times, like myself. I really love this dynamic between these two. They really are like brothers. They're almost like a married couple at one point as well. But I like how it's a nice contrast to the Vincent-Anton relationship.
Yeah, this is a part of the movie that works really well. And when they first meet, I was a little worried that it was going to be like this bitter, sour relationship. Because it kind of starts off a little bit like that. You know, he's like, well, you could never be me or whatever. But kind of in short order, they establish that they're like roommate bros, then you know, friends who really care about each other, and you know, like by the end, like they're really like, you know, quite close. And Jude Law says, like, what does he say? I gave you my identity or blood or heart or something like that, but you gave me your dream. You know, like you kind of, or when he brings him home when he's drunk and he's like, I'm proud of you, you know, and he means it. Yeah, because you're right. It does start off a little bit frosty, but they have more in common. They're both really outsiders and outcasts at this point. They could have played this in a way that is like miserable and tedious, which I don't think would have made for a very different movie.
Yeah, and this is where a lot of the humor comes from is their relationship. Like the first morning that Jerome goes, okay, I'm going to call him Vince. I'm going to keep calling him Vincent, even though he's Jerome at this point to avoid confusion. Ethan Hawke, Vincent. Or I'm going to try to, because my notes say both. So he's going to work for the first time, I guess, in this new role. And he keeps testing the P, and it keeps up, like, coming up with like a negative response. I mean, Eugene is just like drinking his life away. I like the line, there's more vodka in this piss than there is piss. And they're trying all these different samples. And he's like, oh, no, try like Monday. That's the one. Try that one. So he makes it down there. This is when he first meets the doctor, I guess. And they establish this very strange boundaryless relationship. Also, Vincent is now a degenerate.
Okay, let me just say that line of dialogue was both. So he says, like, I am part of, you know, this new part of society that people, you know, frown upon, called a borrowed ladder. And I was like, that's a good, like, sci-fi movie term that, like, you know, again, like the ladder, you know, like the DNA ladder thing, like, I was like, that's so clever. And then he's like, degenerate. And I was like, oh, fuck you.
I love it. I think it's real, though. Like, you know, people like to give things stupid names.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. So he's working away at Gattaca. He's so psyched. His boss loves him. Uma Thurman's very suspicious of him for fucking, I don't know why.
Is she suspicious of him?
I mean, she later takes his fucking spit to the spit guy.
Yeah. That's at the point where she's sort of been tasked to help with the investigation. So I guess at that point it makes sense.
That's true. Yeah.
But they have an exchange early on before the whole, like, murder plot starts, and she's like,
that's true.
Doesn't seem suspicious of him, but she seems weird. Her character's weird.
Yeah.
Should we talk about Uma Thurman?
Weird Uma Thurman vibes. She's kind of weird. Like she is, there's always, you're like, what's going on here, Uma? Which I know in the beginning I said I hated her performance in this and it was wooden. This time around, I feel like I need to apologize. I think I was a real dickhead because I think she gives a really beautiful performance. And I think that any wooden element to it was probably intentional because she's not a perfect specimen according to the rules of this world that they live in. And she needs to, it's this formality or something that she's trying to prove herself and be a part of the elite, I think. There is one line, and we will get to it, that I will never forgive her for. The delivery is just it is burned into my brain, and I hate it. It shoots Tom Everett Scott like rage through me.
It flames on the side of my face.
But we'll get to that.
Yeah, I think her character is like it is a weird kind of vibe and performance. But I don't think it's her ability or maybe even choices she's making. I think part of it is the story. She is she's not an invalid, but she's not, in perfect condition. So she's kind of getting sidelined in her job because of that. Mm-hmm. She is having to prove herself. So she's just, very serious and like businesslike and all that. Yeah. But I think maybe the way the story plays out, it just makes her come across kind of weird. Until once she has moments with Vincent and you kind of see her like personality come out and you see like Uma Thurman come out, you're like, okay, that's Uma Thurman, then it works, but it did kind of throw me off for a while. Yeah I mean, I didn't set her up for success.
So then a mission director is found murdered, smashed to death by a keyboard. Real office style rage happening here.
That's a sturdy keyboard.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if you're beating someone to death with a keyboard. Yeah, they're made of steel.
So now it becomes a murder mystery, and this sort of film noir style kind of ramps up a little bit and makes a little bit more sense from the beginning of this movie. And the investigation starts, and Alan Arkin, my dream of dreams, Schmendrick comes in to check things out. And the boss, dickhead boss, is what's his name? Director Joseph or Joseph? I'm not sure. It's spelled like Joseph in the credits. Gore Vidal, anyway. He's kind of shitty to her and was like, hey, fucking do the administrative secretary work for these guys. So I guess women are still treated like shit, and or anyone who's not perfection is treated like shit.
Yeah, I think that was when I first saw it, I didn't quite catch on to that. I saw that she got sidelined with the shitty job, but she says like, will my place in line be assured? And he's like, your place is assured. So like, I think that was the Genoism, they call it, at play there.
Right. Interesting that the only one being treated like this, though, just happens to be a woman. She's like the only woman in this movie.
There was other women in that gym with the treadmills.
Oh, yeah. That's true. And the one woman who goes to the spit place to get a reading, who kissed someone.
That felt very believable.
I agree.
If you could pay $10 on Tinder to get someone's genetic profile before you went on a date with them, I guarantee you people would pay for that.
We're trash. Humans are trash. Okay, so anyway, everyone's kind of like, I don't know, like what's going on. And here's the thing: they're doing this investigation. This is something that jumped out to me as being very unbelievable this time, and I have questions. No one knows who a swimming star from the UK is. Is it because he's foreign? Is it because the minute like you're less supreme, you're completely forgotten about? But like also, wouldn't people have known that Jerome was this like superstar athlete who then had an accident and is now in a wheelchair? Like, it's not because of his genetics that he's, quote, inferior. It's because he was in an accident.
Well, okay, so they kind of explain away the accident thing by saying he was in another country, so like it didn't make its way into the official medical records, which is why his profile is clean. As for them not knowing him, I don't know. I mean, was he famous? Do they have? He
was a swimming star. Like, do they not have news?
I know the name of one swimming star. and I doubt I'll ever know another one again. Like, how popular is swimming in Space 50s?
I don't know. Maybe they don't have media like we have now.
Well, that is a thing. Like, the aesthetic of this movie really is like the 50s, 60s. Like, it's space Mad Men. Even all the like computer technology where they're reading the DNA of people behaves in a way that doesn't actually make sense, but it looks cool, which is like when the blood is on the thing, the picture will show it, but it's kind of like flickering and like, it's going in and out of focus. So you can imagine that this is a world without an internet and without television, and everybody has face blindness. Nobody can recognize anyone else's face. So true. I kind of buy it.
Yeah. Like Vincent's former janitor coworker.
Nothing.
I'll take care of that for you, Mr. Morrow. Poor guy. So I think this is when Vincent as Jerome is then like, they're like, hey, you're going to space. It's approved. Now that this fucker's dead. And him and Eugene go out for drinks to celebrate. It's one of my favorite scenes in this movie.
We have to get drunk immediately.
Yeah. And Eugene is bitching about the wine. And,
okay, something I noticed this time when I watched it. So there's the scene where Uma Thurman is at the place where you can test someone, and there's that other woman. She's like, I kissed him like not 5 minutes ago. And then like the next scene, he's complaining about the wine having not been opened for more than 5 minutes. Is that deliberate? Or is that just a coincidence?
Yeah. I don't know. That seems like a clunky mistake if it was a mistake.
But if it's deliberate, it doesn't make any sense. Or, I can't pick out what they're going for there.
Interesting. I'll have to watch it again and again and again. This is a real heart-to-heart moment. Like, I think this is when they really, really bond. This happens when we get drunk, right?
When you get bombed together.
Yeah. Some of my best friends, what really pushed us to that point was one of us vomiting at a party. So
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
I like that moment when Vincent asks Eugene, what are you going to do? And he's like, I'm going to finish this. And he just throws that wine back like no problem.
Pounds that glass of wine. Yeah.
and they really share with each other like what they hope for themselves for the future. And they do the little Titan with the smoke. What's Titan like this time of year? It's the smoke in the glass, cool, kind of sexy moment, I guess. Why is smoke so sexy? Why? Is there like a scientific reason? I'll do some research.
I don't know, but I mean, this is a prime example of smoking making you look cool with Jude Law in that intro scene.
Yeah.
I like when Vincent says, it should be you up there. He's like, why? And he's like, because your legs wouldn't matter, which I actually thought was a pretty funny response. And then he's like, I'm scared of heights.
Yeah. I think this fucking movie is so well written. Like, the dialogue is so natural and it's delivered in such a natural way, which I appreciate within this sci-fi sort of bubble. Then Eugene barfs and apologizes. And he's like, do you want this? I'll save some for you, shall I? And then, of course, reveals that he stepped out in front of a car that put him in the wheelchair, not that it was an accident, and he's shitting on himself. I couldn't even get that right, could I?
Couldn't handle second place. And then, alludes to, I'm going to do it later.
Yeah. Try again.
Yeah.
And Vincent's not really maybe ready to deal with that. He's like, you're drunk, go to bed. Okay, so then at work, fucking Vincent's hair is found and shit starts getting real. And they find out that an invalid is on the premises.
Okay, can we talk about the brother detective, Anton?
We sure can.
So the first time I watched this movie, when we get the reveal that he's his brother, I actually I groaned. I was like, oh, really? Why? And watching it this time, I guess I didn't realize how much the behavior of the two detectives completely hinges on that fact. Because watching it again, I'm like, or the first time I saw it, I was like, this guy's a bad detective. Like, Alan Alda is like
Arkin.
I knew I was going to do that. Alan Arkin is like, hey, it's probably this person who just showed up here. You know, because they get the second sample and they're like, we think it's this guy. Yeah. And Anton is like really pushing away from that the whole time. And I thought what they were going for, maybe the movie is clever. Because they do have this relationship where there's the older detective and the younger guy, but he's always calling him sir, and he's always like, I hope I'm not stepping out of bounds. But he's like a little bit sarcastic the whole time. So like clearly there's this tension with like this younger guy who is a valid, and I suspect the older guy is maybe not, you know, because he's from a previous generation. Yeah. So I guess I thought that's what they were going for. But watching it again, he maybe knows it's his brother pretty early on, so he's kind of either covering for him or just trying to figure it out, but like not wanting to go there. Okay, I think I just talked myself into not hating this part as much as I did when I first saw it.
I that's how I always saw it, or like a combination of both of those things as well. But I have to admit, in this rewatching of it, there were times when I thought, wait, what is the moment? Like, I know that they're going after his brother potentially, but I think then when they move into the fact that he is taking somebody else's identity, what is the moment where he figures that out is unclear. And so I think that in terms of that arc, I think that was a little bit fuzzy for me. But yes, I do think that he immediately is like, oh, fuck, that's my missing brother who, disappeared when I was younger. And then all of a sudden, he disappeared again recently in the official records as a janitor, but his shit's still in the building. Like his hair is still floating around the building in this spotless building. I do think that is because Anton is like, he does recognize his brother and is like, nah. Yeah. But then he's also a like absolute dickhead to his brother later and was like, I gotta take you in, man.
That's the thing that maybe
his motivation
doesn't make sense. Like, I guess maybe he doesn't suspect or want to believe that his brother killed that dude, but then that gets resolved. So at that point, he's like, I still got to take you in because I got to take you down a peg.
Maybe that brotherly sort of conflict they have going on.
Jealousy. He's still like angry about the swimming thing. I mean, that's clearly like, they allude to that again.
Maybe that is what it is. And honestly, when I was younger and watched this, I kind of felt for Anton and I thought he was a good guy, but I feel like Anton is like one of those guys who's like, I'm a nice guy. And he's not. He's a bit of a stick up his ass. Like, I don't know. He's not a good man, I wouldn't say. He's following the rules, but he's not necessarily a good person.
I guess. I mean, the only thing you have to judge it by is how he treats Vincent. And in that moment, you're like, aw, fuck you, buddy. But otherwise, you don't really know much about him.
Yeah. He's wooden. He's boring.
Character. So that character felt the most like, I don't know, just not working for me. And I don't know if it's like the actor. I don't know this actor from anything else. Like,
yeah.
I wouldn't say he gave a bad performance, but he kind of feels like he's on a TV show and everyone else is in a movie.
I get what you're saying, actually. Yeah. His energy is just not where everyone else's energy is, which I mean, kind of works in the sense that he's also very much an outsider, and not sort of in on it, but he is kind of, I don't know. He's also laying it on real fucking thick with Irene as soon as he meets her. Like, you're on the job, guy. Calm down.
Got to shoot your shot. Uma Thurman, come on.
I mean, yeah. Look, a model, another model.
She was a model?
Yes.
I didn't know
she's
that.
She's like 6 feet tall or something outrageous.
Oh my. Sorry, I'm on Wikipedia now.
Oh my God. Yeah, and then she's flirting with Jerome finally. Like, they just flirt outright. Like, they've kind of been dancing around it. And then they start to flirt, and we find out that she has probability of heart failure, but she doesn't know that he does also. And I love this moment. It's so romantic when she gives him her hair and she's like, you can get it tested. And he just like lets the wind take it. He's like, I don't give a fuck. You're a hot model. What do I care?
My heart's way more fucked up than yours, but I'm not going to tell you that.
Yeah. We have some really great scenes with Eugene and Vincent again. This one scene where Vincent, like, he's freaking out. He's like, they're going to figure out like what happened. And he's trying to tell Eugene, but Eugene's on the phone with someone and he's like, I'm bored of talking to you. I'm bored. I'll call you back. That will live in my head forever. I think that's such a great moment. He's this real brat. He's bratty.
Yeah, he's complaining to customer service. And then, like, in another scene, Dean Norris from Breaking Bad shows up and he reams him out like, do you know who I am? Who are you to question me?
What's your number?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we also kind of see maybe Eugene getting a little like attached to Vincent, like, because Vincent's going to go out with Irene now. They're going on a date. And as Vincent's leaving, he's like, where are you going? Oh, okay. Oh, why? And we see him like looking out the window as Irene is picking Vincent up. So that at this point, they're fully just like a married couple.
He's like, who's going with you? Oh, everyone's going out.
Everyone. Who's everyone? Yeah. They go on their 6-fingered piano player date, which I think is a fun little...
That really complicates things for me in this sci-fi future. Like, now we're in cyberpunk territory where you can just start adding digits. Like, this makes this world feel like it could be way crazier than what we're seeing.
Yeah, we're seeing like the suburban sort of mom and dad life rather than what's really going on.
I mean, again, like that's the thing with this movie, that it's not really a problem, I guess, but it's just, you know, different tastes. Like, I like sci-fi that gives me as much of a sort of picture of what the sort of implications of whatever thing you're proposing in your sci-fi story are all about, which I think, you know, Blade Runner does kind of do that. It is a story about, like, you know, it's just about a couple of characters, but you're really like in this world and you're kind of going around the place and you really get a feel for what the world is like. Whereas this movie, you know, it's like an apartment and Gattaca and a bar, and that's kind of about it, you know?
Yeah.
And I guess the other thing is it's sort of an interesting choice to make the job, an astronaut, because in reality, being an astronaut right now is like the most, what is your body capable of, you know, like there probably is a lot of like screening that happens now, or even, you know, in the 70s, you know? So it's kind of a funny choice. Like, if you're sort of trying to make a point about like, well, we can genetically modify people, but that's not a measure of their true potential. Their true potential is, you know, their character or whatever. Picking the profession that does most rely on someone's physical health is kind of a funky choice.
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. For like poetry's sake, I think it's a really beautiful choice. Because I do think, and like, you know, as we get to the end, I think there are these parallels of like going upstairs and life and death. And like they say, like, he does say at one point, like, that it could kill him being up there. Like, he may very well die when he goes up there, but...
And I guess they don't do the genetic testing once they get into space. They're like, we saw you get on the airplane, you're fine. Yeah,
your final piss test and you're off.
Yeah. And you fly in a suit. Everybody's wearing suits.
Yeah. Oh yeah, so they're leaving their date and the cops are there's like a it's like a check stop, I guess, for your DNA rather than a breathalyzer. They're swabbing you. Okay, so in this moment, I want to know what you think this was, because he takes out his contact lenses, Vincent, while he's in the car with Irene. She's driving. He takes out his contact lenses. Fine, that makes sense. Then the guy, the cop or whatever, goes to swab his mouth and he's like, oh, I don't want to give you a contaminated specimen. And I never understood that until this viewing. And I was like, oh, wait, is he implying that they were kissing and he's got her business in his mouth, or like something out, like, something a little more mature?
I mean,
because she just kind of just like, mm-hmm.
Well, it kind of doesn't make sense either way. Like, whatever it is implied that they did, it's the same DNA and it's the same two people in the car. So, like, it doesn't really make sense. But I did not have a particularly filthy read on it, because this movie, again, is set in the 50s and everyone is a gentleman and they're like...
And a lady. Yeah.
Just sucking face.
But I thought maybe, okay, we'll talk about that kiss later. Anyway, so then she's like, I got something to show you. Parks, I don't know, on the side of a highway? I don't know. And then he's got to get out.
Gotta play Frogger.
But this first time, too, I was like, I literally went out, I said out loud, oh, just like Jerome, the real Jerome, Eugene, had his traffic accident, sort of, stepping out in front of traffic, and now this guy's got to step out in traffic. Thought that was another interesting little parallel. And then they have some lovey-gushy stuff. It doesn't go that far. They're a gentleman and a lady. This isn't date 3 yet. So then this poor fucking guy, Alan Arkin, again, he's on it. He knows exactly what's going on, but nobody really believes him. And like you said, Anton is like pushing it in the other direction.
But also he says something that kind of, like, at one point they go to the city somewhere and there's a bunch of invalids being round up, and he's like, no, we should have a perimeter around Gattaca. Which actually, if you're trying to catch the brother, makes more sense. So I was very confused then too, of like, what are you going for here? Like,
is he trying to catch his brother to see if his brother is really alive? And if it really, like, is he trying to solve the case of his missing brother while trying not to convince Alan Arkin's character not to, get this guy for murder?
I don't know. Presumably, the first time he found out that they had the material from the invalid, he would have seen the name in the picture and been like, that's my missing brother. So at that point, like, maybe he wants to find him to actually, like, see and confirm. And that scene toward the end with Jerome, when they meet, he is like kind of like walking away, like looking at him like, no, that's not him. So I don't know. He's trying to figure out what's going on, but I guess maybe not, in case it is his brother, not totally incriminate him.
Yeah, like, I think he definitely wants full control of this rather than Alan Arkin, because Alan Arkin is on it. Like, he's obviously incredibly intelligent and good at his job. Anyway. Then we get more Uma and Ethan. They're out on a date. I love everything about this date. It's very sweet. He's like talking about going up there and like, basically, will she wait for him? It's like he's going to prison. And he's like, a year's a long time. And she goes, not so long, just once around the sun. Ah, my heart.
Yeah, there's some obnoxious cutesy shit going on here. Like, at one point she says, like, I had this crazy idea that you were more interested in the murder investigation than me. And he's like, you're right, that is crazy. And she's like, he's like, that I would be more interested in the investigation. She's like, oh.
I love it. It's cute. I think they have good chemistry. And then Alan
It only
Arkin
lasted so long, though.
Well, if you don't cheat with the fucking nanny. Anyway.
Was it the same nanny with Jude Law and Ethan Hawke, you think? We established it was not Fran Drescher, but I just wonder if it was the same nanny.
I think Ethan Hawke ended up marrying the woman that he cheated on Uma Thurman with. I think.
The right thing to do would have been for Ethan Hawke and Jude Law to marry each other. Everybody wins.
Oh, now I'm warm. Okay. So, a year's a long time, just once around the sun. Oh, okay. Alan Arkin he's the party pooper. I love this. He's kind of just Alan Arkin here, or what I imagine Alan Arkin is. He's like, hello, everyone. I'm your detective for the evening. Please don't leave the premises. And then everyone, I don't know why, everyone scatters.
Yeah,
why?
Like this is just a bunch of people that are out on the town. They're like, the cops.
Yeah, I don't know if like, is this like a bunch of like invalids who are in like someplace they're not supposed to be? This was like very Prohibition era style kind of breaking up the joint. I didn't get it. I didn't get that. But whatever. Okay.
It's also, they did a real bad job of like setting up a perimeter, because they bust in and then everybody runs out,
Yeah.
Like, oh, we didn't think to put someone at all the exits.
Yeah. And then Anton screams Vincent in the alleyway.
Yeah, okay, so that definitely, watching it a second time, I was like, oh, okay, I get what that yell is all about. Like, he's actually, like, yelling for his brother, whereas before, he was just like, this guy really now believes this guy is the suspect?
Yeah, again, a little bit fuzzy. And, okay, another thing. This is number 2, the big poo confusing moment for me, is I thought Irene figures out in this moment, it seems clear to me that she's like, what, who are you? And they're basically like, shut up and kiss me. Like, I get it. I know who you are. I accept you. I love you for who you are.
She says, who's Vincent? And he's like, it's me. And then they're like, and they're both kind of like emotional, and they make out a bit. And then they go to her crazy apartment, oceanside glass window view. And then the next morning, she's looking at his like cut up legs, and he's giving her the story about the car or whatever. And she's like, oh yeah, she knows it's a lie. So it does seem at that point in the movie, it's very clear she knows what is going on.
Yeah, but then later, okay, this is pretty much right next. Okay, first of all, I just have to say that kiss they had looked absolutely disgusting and horrifying. And they had like really weird, jittery, upside down sex in that shot, and I was very uncomfortable, and I think I just don't like watching people kiss sometimes when it looks real nasty. It looked really awkward. I didn't like it.
Yeah, I mean that was the camera that was upside down. They were not actually upside down. They weren't
on the ceiling. It wasn't
and
like
the ocean wasn't in the sky.
It wasn't like Dracula's Brides style, just
floating around.
I don't know, maybe in the 50s future we have sex on the ceiling. I don't know. So anyway, so yes, pretty much right away, this is where I got extra confused, because they play this game of we know that you know, but nobody's admitting that they know. It's a kind of like cat and mouse thing. Irene sees that Anton is at the place and they're looking for she can tell they're looking for Vincent. She's like, Vincent or Jerome, you look sick. You should go home. She sends him away. He gets it. He leaves. So she clearly knows that he's not who he says he is. But then Anton is like, oh, well, I just need to run a test, whatever. Let's go check on Jerome, who's actually Vincent. Vincent calls Eugene and was like, you got to fucking cover for me. Jerome, hauls his ass up the stairs. Okay, first of all, those stairs look like a helix, which is very cool and apparently was very intentional. Because I was wondering, why the fuck does this guy not have an elevator in his home?
It's the worst apartment for a person in a wheelchair to be in. Absolutely. And it's also just a crazy apartment. Like, it's got this massive, it's just 2 floors. Yeah.
I mean, maybe they just have no need for elevators, because once people can't walk anymore, they're just forgotten about.
You just live on the bottom floor.
Yeah. Anyway, maybe he just had this. Maybe, no, because he's an immigrant. Whatever. I was like, maybe he had it before his accident. Anyway, he hauls his ass up the stairs. She walks in, looks absolutely shocked to see a different man sitting there. This is the line. She's got this beautiful, graceful swan neck. And she goes, good to see you're feeling better. What? The delivery of that line is so irritating. It's so unnatural. I hate it. It's like nails on a chalkboard for me.
I saw your notes, so I watched it, and I wasn't that taken aback, because it kind of, in the context, and maybe this is also the reason for her kind of meltdown in the next scene, was she's in a very stressful situation, because this is like, there's a cop and they're kind of committing fraud and she's kind of helping with it. And then so she shows up and like, okay, now they got to play this whole scenario out. So she's very nervous and she's trying to play it cool. So she's like, yes. But then maybe also the reality of like seeing the other guy and the gravity of the situation kind of dawning on her.
I'm not saying it's like weird for her to be nervous, but the line delivery, I fucking hate it.
You would have liked another take there.
Would have liked another take. I'm sure there was another take. They should have used it. Maybe something was off with the audio. They couldn't figure it out, you know. I love that line. Like, Eugene's such a little shit here. He's like, where's my kiss?
Yeah.
And then, yeah, he convinces him. He does a little blood test, which looks like a blood glucose tester, like for diabetic, you know, testing, just with a little Tamagotchi screen on it.
I like also that, like, in this world, just anybody can walk up to you with a giant 1950s syringe and be like, yeah, I just need to take your blood.
I mean,
they just
he's
pull
a
it
cop.
out of their pocket. It's like all linty, just dust it off.
He's not just anyone. He's a cop.
Oh, yeah.
You know? So, and then, okay, he's like, okay. And he's, I don't know. He's like really suspicious something is downstairs, which in my notes, I was like, there's no reason for him to be suspicious, which there is kind of, because he's confused. He knows something's going on. But that was kind of a weird choice. Anyway.
I don't know. I think it makes sense because he knows his brother's like involved, you know, and he can sense something is up and he's trying to sniff it out.
Yeah, I guess. Anyway,
he
gets
cool
distracted.
Stairs. Those look like a helix. I'm going to try them.
He gets distracted. I think it's a call or something.
Yeah, they say like we got him.
Oh, okay, yeah. And he's like, okay, anyway, I guess I'm not needed here. And this is when, so he leaves, and then Irene is just like, like, she's so shocked. And Vincent asks Jerome or Eugene, how did you get up there? And he goes, oh, I could always walk. I've been faking it. And the way he delivers it, it's like he's revealing to Irene that Vincent is faking his identity almost. And she's so just like taken aback. And I'm like, what the fuck is happening here? Like her shock, and it seems like disproportionate if she knew already. So this is what kind of threw me off a little bit in this viewing.
I mean, I know I agree that her reaction kind of makes no sense. But I didn't connect it with his line about, oh, I've been faking it the whole time. I can walk. That I thought that was just a joke. I don't think she was reacting to that at all.
I don't know that she was necessarily just reacting to that, but I don't think that was unintentional.
Maybe. I don't know. I think Jude Law's just doing
everything's
bits.
A choice, man. Just doing, like, that was all improv.
Jokes.
Yeah. Then I have a note, and it's a moment of him. I don't know who him is. I think it's Vincent telling Irene it is possible. I think, and I got emotional, but I forgot what moment that was. Is that when he's like, hey, it's possible. Look where I am. You can do whatever you want. Shoot for the stars, baby. I think that's what it was. And I found it quite moving, but then I kind of forgot about it. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think that was that part.
Okay, great.
Because the next time they see each other is after the brother swimming contest.
Yeah, where they're both just like chilling outside in a car.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, Vincent's like, I got to go meet the cop. Okay. So I want to know, I guess he would know it was Anton maybe, but it sounds like he hasn't seen or heard Anton as an adult. So did he know? Could he see through a crack in the floor? Like, did he know that when somebody in the alleyway was screaming Vincent, that it was his brother? When and how did he know that it was Anton? Did he see him?
So also,
go ahead.
Yeah, when did they encounter each other? The other time was when he was on the treadmill doing the exercise, and both cops show up and they're talking to the snooty murder space commander guy.
Yeah.
And like, maybe he wouldn't have been looking, but he might have been able to hear it, you know, and maybe he's like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, there was another time where they just missed each other, or like Anton just missed Vincent when they were doing the testing of all the workers at Gattaca.
Right. I feel like when he yells at him in the alley, he's got to know at that point. That yell, you know.
Yeah. That sloppy, gross kiss was spurred on by something. Maybe I don't like when kisses look real on camera. I want a movie kiss. Kisses are great in real life. I don't want to look at it though. You know, fucking calm down with that. Anyway. So, okay, my next question. How did he know Anton would be sitting at his desk at that particular moment in time? He just like walks in like he's like, it's on, man. Here we go.
Yeah, because it's a movie and it's the last 15 minutes.
So in this scene, I'm like, fuck you, Anton. And he basically was just like,
he's just like, you're just mad because I beat you at swimming.
Yeah. Ethan Hawke plays this scene so well. It's so heartbreaking. He's just like so controlled and it's so real. My heart really broke for him. And then these two brothers fucking jump in the like tumultuous rocky sea at night like two fucking dum-dums. They've just got to beat each other.
And I guess they like the same thing happens. He saves them and then you just don't see the brother again. So I guess the brother's like, well, fuck. He's right.
It's true. It's true. It's so dramatic. I actually really love it. It looks beautiful. And I do love that line where Vincent says to him, you want to know how I did it? I never saved anything for the swim back. And I think that's such a nice bit, you know, in terms of him going to space and his health. He's not saving anything for the swim back. Like he may not come back. And that's how he must live in this world that he's living in as a godchild.
Yeah, and I guess that is like, you know, the theme of the difference between the invalids and the, you know, superhumans is like the superhumans have expectations or they have potential, you know, because when he's younger, he's like, I bet I could be an astronaut if I wanted to, you know, but he doesn't. He becomes a cop, which I don't know if that's good or bad, if that's what he wanted to do. Whereas Vincent is like the one who's told, you have no potential. We're not going to give you any opportunities. And he's like, no, I'm just I'm going to die empty. I'm going to go all the way.
Yeah. It's beautiful. And there's a very dramatic, poetic shot of the stars as the clouds part and the boys are swimming on their, you know, Vincent saves Anton. It was a little cheesy, but I still like, there were a couple cheesy moments in this, but I think if you just kind of go with it, the poetry of it is really lovely.
There's some good shots in this movie too. This movie looks interesting. Like the color palette is like very, I don't know, maybe it gets a little tiresome after a while. It's not a style that I'm super into, of like very dark green and orange. Like when they're Uma Thurman and Ethan Hawke, the morning after they cross the street and play Frogger, they're outside and there's all these solar panels and everything is just orange. Like it's very distinctive looking. And then there's just a lot of like, you know, cool shots. Like when you first see Jude Law smoking the cigarette and he looks like badass. I like after they do the leg extension surgery and Vincent is just like laying on the floor. And then a little bit behind him is Jude Law sitting in his chair. And it's just like a beautifully like framed shot. Like as a picture, it just looks so cool.
Yeah, I agree. And who's that famous architect? That's who designed the building that most of this was shot in. Frank Lloyd Wright? Is that his name?
Andrew Lloyd Webber. I couldn't name a single architect.
Hold on, let me Frank Lloyd Wright. He designed that where they shot most of this. So yeah, it's interesting. Oh yeah, and by the way, the sexist, weird old man, shitty boss, Gore Vidal, was the killer. It feels like just kind of a side note to the story.
You know what? The murder mystery is not actually all that interesting.
No.
Like at no point did I actually kind of care who committed the murder, because I knew it wasn't Vincent, and you know, it's relevant in so much as you don't want him to get busted for you know, committing fraud, but I mean, they don't really make a lot of fanfare about when they find the guy. They just kind of like, it was this guy, you know, the one with the obvious motive who has been really creepy this whole time.
Yeah, and it's definitely like that's not what, you know, we're waiting for the third act to find out who the killer was. Like, we're finding out, does Vincent make it to space? Oh yeah, so like you said, okay, so Irene and Vincent, they're like, she's sleeping in the car and he's just like chilling outside the car. Like, what? This was just like a cool shot. Speaking of like nice looking shots, there's no reason why the fuck are they not inside in a bed or what?
Is she waiting outside? Where is she? Is that outside of her apartment?
I don't know. They're in a random place. And then he gives her his hair and she lets the wind catch it. And my heart. And then the point where I fucking lose my mind and break the hell down every time I watch this movie is when Vincent says goodbye to Eugene and Eugene rolls him into the fridge. And he tells him he's traveling too, so he's left him a lifetime worth of specimens. And they have a really sweet send-off. And gives him a note and tells him not until you're upstairs. The upstairs thing, at this point, I was losing it. I was like, upstairs in the house, upstairs in the sky and the stars, upstairs in heaven. Oh my God, this is beautiful. This is poetry. I lose it.
Yeah, and then Jude Law just sets himself on fire.
It's so, but in the moment when like because Vincent sets off and the doctor has his last moment with him. And he's just like, P.S. I fucking know. Because there's something about this moment where the urine sample actually isn't, or the blood or whatever isn't.
They do a last minute piss test.
Right.
And I guess he was not anticipating that. And he's just like, fuck. And I like he's saying like, just know that I could have done it, that I made it this far. You know, he's sort of like, you got me now, but, you know, recognize game. And then cool doctor is like, it's all good, bro. I knew.
Yeah. Right-handed men don't hold it with their left.
Yeah.
And tells him about his son, and that's really sweet. So the doctor is really the hero of this story. But yeah, as soon as Vincent's like shooting off into space and the space thing is like the spaceship is when like fucking Jude Law just sets himself on fire at the same time. Oh my God. As I bawl.
Yeah, it's very like poetic and you know, but he sets himself on fire. I just can't get over that fact that was his decision. I guess it actually does make sense because, well, are incinerators common in houses in Space 50s? Because that seems a little weird.
I feel like this was just a furnace.
I mean, it's a pretty powerful furnace.
Acting. I mean, he's got a full, like, that's a high ceiling. He's got to heat that whole place.
Yeah, I suppose. But it does make sense in terms of like the logistics because he's kind of like he's sort of sacrificing. He's giving up his life so that Vincent can sort of fully embody Jerome. You know, he's like, I've given you enough materials to last you a long time. And he wants to kill himself, but he doesn't like the fact that he does it that way actually is like sort of thoughtful, you know, because if he were to do it perhaps any other way, they'd be like, well, we found a dead guy who's also in space right now. Yeah. And that presents a problem. Whereas by doing it this way, he presumably destroys all the evidence.
Yeah. It's really beautiful. And I think this is part of why I fell in love with Jude Law as this character, because I think this is truly like a very beautiful relationship that these two have, and whatever sort of bratty behavior or unlikable sort of behavior Jerome, like the real Jerome Eugene has at the beginning of this, he's really redeemed so much by the end of this film. And I think like for himself, it feels like he also feels like at peace with this decision more than maybe he had been. Like he has done something good for someone.
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier, but he has a line that's like, I only lent you my body, you lent me your dream. And that's kind of like, I think what he has gotten out of this exchange is, you know, he early on perhaps feels he's wasted his potential. And he's watched someone sort of live his potential. And he's like, no, my potential has been realized by this strange, you know, route it went.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. And that shot of the fucking empty wheelchair in front of the furnace. Like I have to stop the movie at this moment because I'm like hysterical. And then we get this last line, which again, a little bit cheesy, but I think it's super beautiful. They say every atom in our body was once part of a star. Maybe I'm not leaving. Maybe I'm going home. Bury me, I'm done. That's like threw me over the edge. It's beautiful. We don't know if Vincent's going to make it back, but he made it to where he wanted to go. And I think it's a really beautiful story.
I agree.
Yeah, I don't know. I think this movie for me is near perfect. Like there are plot holes, things that I maybe aren't always clear to me, but I like this faith versus science aspect to it. I think it's really well balanced and really beautifully explored without being terribly like heavy-handed. It's not preaching one thing or another. It's just sort of posing questions. And again, like this sort of parallel between the two Jeromes, I think is done so well. And I'm kind of excited to watch it again to see like what else I might be missing. Because there are other details through this whole movie too that like really add to the, you know.
Can I point out two details that I noticed watching it today that I thought were really funny?
Yes.
You know, so this is a movie that deals with like eugenics and, you know, that's touchy territory. There's two scenes. One is when they go to the place where you make your baby and the guy is explaining it to them. It's a black doctor and he says like, you requested this, that, and fair skin. And he just kind of grins at them. It's really funny. And I also like there's a scene early on where Vincent is applying for a job and he gets like very clearly discriminated against for, you know, he hands him the cup or whatever. And that's also a black guy. So I thought that was funny.
Yeah. Nice little details. Yeah. I mean, some like there's some interesting stuff about this movie. So this movie was actually promoted with a fake ad in the Washington Post for a company offering genetically altered embryos or to genetically alter embryos. And it had a list of traits people could like basically order with a phone number. And like thousands of people called this phone number. Oh my God. I hate it. But okay, despite all this bombed at the box office. So the budget was $36 million and it made only $12 million. I don't remember this being... I don't remember even hearing about this until like I discovered it like on VHS or whatever.
Yeah, I have a vague recollection of it when it came out, but I seem to also recall it not doing well and just not looking into it for years.
I don't think anyone was like a big star like at the time in this movie. Like I think Ethan Hawke was the most well-known person in this. Like this was Jude Law's first American movie. He kind of blew up like after The Talented Mr. Ripley and all of that. But I mean, you have Alan Arkin, sure, but he's really not that present. You have Gore Vidal, but like they're really in the background. They're not featured.
Elias Koteas.
You know. Our Canadian boy. I guess the original ending, I thought this was cool, actually had images of like people who had like genetic disorders. Like Albert Einstein and Abraham Lincoln were two of them, along with some others. And so they were shown on the screen along with text that stated that if this sort of thing was like this sort of screening was available in their time, they would have never been born. And then this text that said like you as the viewer wouldn't have existed, but they scrapped that because test audiences were uncomfortable with the suggestion they were genetically inferior.
Hey, loser.
Like, I don't know. I feel like that's kind of the point of the movie is to not be stressed that you're not perfect. One element of this story. You should at very least go away understanding that.
You're okay just as you are. Well, okay, I kind of, I don't know if I totally agree with that because the thing is like those people wouldn't have been born, but what they were doing in the movie was picking... This is a really existential question, but like, you know, they were picking which fertilized egg has the best shot.
Yeah.
Well, I guess there's two things. So like early on, well, no, they do say there's modification and then there's the whole, like, we just fertilized some eggs and statistically found the best one, you know, and one of those is actually like not that crazy to sort of imagine and maybe not that horrifying an idea versus like, hey, we can give him 6 fingers. You want that?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely different. I mean, yeah, you could, I guess,
that would still
philosophize over this for days.
Yeah, that would still introduce a lot of the same problems because it's just like, you know, you can either do it naturally or you can like pick the most perfect kid and that's comes with ethical issues.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it is scary. Like, okay, so this is 10 years old, but NASA in 2011 stated that this was the most plausible sci-fi movie ever made. That may have changed since 10 years ago. The least plausible was Armageddon, just, you know.
Oh, disagree.
But, you know, a lot of scientists do talk about this. Like, they are fearful that this will actually happen and that this is the sort of thing that people will
I mean, I can definitely
this has
see
been around for ages, this argument.
Yeah, there's the whole like modification part, and I don't know where the science is with that kind of stuff. But the part that I absolutely see happening is like rapid DNA testing and identification, and that sort of more and more becoming part of our lives. You know, think about like things like 23andMe, those kind of things. Like, you know, a lot of people have very voluntarily given away their genetic data to these private corporations that are later going to be bought out by other private corporations, and who knows where that's going to end up. And that's going to affect things like, can you get health insurance? You know, hey, we happen to get those records, and it turns out you have a heart condition that, you know, might impact you at a certain age. So no health care for you.
Oh, God. Shh. I can't deal. I can't deal with that right now. There's too much other shitty stuff going on. I can't think about that. Sorry to shush you.
But maybe we'll be able to have extra arms, you know? That could be worth it. Become a really good drummer.
Well, I mean, at the beginning of this movie, they're like probability of heart condition, you know, 98%, you know, 30-year life expectancy. I mean, I would have definitely never been born if they were like probability of A, B, and C. Oh, no, she's going to be fucked up. Like, I don't like that. I don't like to think about any of this or 23andMe or whatever. I don't. Look, Jude Law is fucking hot as shit in this movie. Go see it. If you haven't watched this movie yet, I think this should actually be on everyone's watch list. Kids can watch it. Anybody. There's nothing offensive in this movie. It's beautifully made.
Who knows? You might have a sexual awakening when you see Jude Law for the first time.
If anyone wonders why my taste in men is so fucked up, I direct them to the real Jerome Morrow. Yeah, I mean, I love this movie. Honestly, there are some things that aren't perfect about it, but for me, this is near perfect. I'm going to give this as many stars as there are in the galaxy.
Oh. This movie is pretty good. I enjoyed it. I think it's solid. If you like I don't know, if you like science fiction, it's a good one of those. I like that it really does feel like it was written by someone who read a lot of like Philip K. Dick and other kind of, I mean, it's not quite as like wild as a Philip K. Dick story, but it does feel a bit you know, it's got that like 50s sci-fi kind of feel to it. Particularly aesthetically. Yeah, and you know, this guy went on to make wrote and direct The Truman Show, and like I can kind of feel the lineage.
He didn't direct it. He wrote it though.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. Okay, but he directed In Time, which is kind of funny because that is well, let me finish my little outro here. Yeah, so I guess like you know, the only things I maybe didn't enjoy so much were some of it the brother detective character stuff kind of was a little bit clunky and didn't sit well with me the first time. Watching it again, I kind of like a little bit more. It does make it more interesting to kind of, now I understand what that character for the most part is kind of all about, or at least why he's such a bad detective. I think just my personal preferences are, I like sci-fi. One of the things I like about sci-fi is just sort of like taking an idea and seeing what the consequences are in society, which this movie is doing. Like, it is very clearly, you know, saying like, well, this will be a world where people get this kind of favorable treatment because they have the right genetics and other people won't. And I get that, but I think for me, I kind of want to like dive a little bit deeper into that and just like, because I'm thinking through like, well, Ethan Hawke is proving that that's kind of bullshit, you know, and not to say that we're necessarily good at drawing those conclusions ourselves and coming to the right conclusion. But a part of me does feel like in order for me to buy that society is still functioning this way, I need to kind of see more of how that plays out in practice for it to make sense.
I think that's part of why I like it, because I kind of like filling in those blanks and like being left with some of those questions about what does this mean on a larger scale. Like, I think this movie is kind of a sci-fi movie for people who aren't sci-fi people, maybe.
I could see that. Yeah. And I get, you know, so In Time, I'll just bring up the comparison there. I haven't seen that movie since it came out. That came out in 2011. So like my memory of it is really fuzzy, but it does kind of have a similar, like that is a sci-fi movie that is like life and death and class warfare, and it is way less subtle. But I think like it to to me, it gets more into that territory where I'm like, all right, I can kind of see how this world works. Whereas this movie, just because the scope of it is so narrow, you know, like I really don't know how this world works, and I would like to know more. But that's not it's not necessarily a fault of the movie. That's just my tastes. Because early on when they kind of introduced the idea, I got real excited, like, oh, where are they going to go with this? And it just kind of didn't go far enough. But
yeah,
overall, it's a good movie, great soundtrack, looks cool, love the aesthetic, love the performances. I really like Jude Law and Ethan Hawke and their chemistry and their kind of like bromance they got going on. It's fun to watch. So I'm going to give this 8.5 space cakes.
8.5. That's pretty good.
Also, I will say last week I gave Slapshot 9.5 out of 10, and I do feel like that score was really inflated, but I am basing it just on how much I enjoy the movie. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, all the
These
stars
scores
in the
are
galaxy. Bullshit. All the stars in the galaxy is not necessarily a reflection of the actual movie itself, although I would give it like a 9.5 in a real actual situation. But for what it does to my heart and soul, I give it everything. Plus, Alan Arkin just shoots it out of the stratosphere for me. So there you go. All right. Well, thanks for listening. And let us know what you think about Gattaca and our thoughts on Gattaca and who's right, me or Jason. Should we narrow in or should we expand with our sci-fi? All you nerds listening, let us know. If you want to give us a rating wherever you're listening to this, that would be much appreciated. It helps us out. You can email us at xpostwatcho@gmail.com or find us on Instagram and Facebook at xpostwatcho. Next week, we will be watching 24 Hour Party People. Make sure you come back for that, and we'll see you then.